How do I experience faith beyond guilt, shame, and burden? We live in a time when one of the buzzwords around Christian faith is deconstruction. Anybody hear that word, deconstruction, about Christian faith? We're going to get there. Deconstruction essentially means that people who have walked with Jesus, or at least have gone to church for some time, have decided that there's something wrong with the Christian faith, and rather than help reform it, they walk away from it. We see this happen across Christian celebrity, which may be an oxymoron on its own, but that's what we see. We see it among young people. We see it among older people. We see it among the burnout, the disillusioned, and the remindedly destitute. I can never, ever be good enough, so I might as well walk away from this thing. And we end up with phrases like de-churched, unchurched, and rechurched. And it really gets down to this tension of, what do I do with faith? What does it look like? How can I live into this? And one of the things I would tell you is, if we were to pursue Jesus at his level, if we were to listen to his words over and over and over, Jesus tells us that he's come to do something new, and he's come to give life. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Let me set this in context. In John chapter 10, Jesus is teaching. If we were to kind of set the tone for where Jesus is in this particular encounter, Jesus has just healed a blind man. Nothing new for Jesus. He's healed people on many occasions. This man was born blind, and his eyes were opened. Jesus did something that no one had seen done for this man. The problem with Jesus is he healed the man on the Sabbath day. And this creates the tension. Because to heal someone on the Sabbath is work, and you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. And the conversation begins to happen. Is it better to heal than not heal? Would we withhold good from someone because our law says to withhold good, to not work? But Jesus healed the man. The religious leaders were furious with this man. They called him a liar. They start to interview him. Tell us what happened. Well, this happened, and now I can see. I don't know what happened, but I once was blind. You've heard this line before, right? I once was blind, but now I see. So they bring his parents in. Tell us what happened. We don't know, because they were afraid of the religious leaders. He's old enough. Have him tell you the story again. He didn't change his story. Instead of receiving the miracle, they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown the man out, and he goes to find the blind man. This is the end of chapter 9. And Jesus goes to the man who was blind, and he says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" One of Jesus' favorite titles for himself. And the formerly blind man says, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" And Jesus says, "You have seen him. In fact, he's the one speaking with you now." He says, "I believe, Lord," and he falls down and he worships. I have come into this world for judgment, in order that those who do not see will see, and those who do see will become blind. And some of the Pharisees who were near Jesus, when he heard these things, says, "We aren't blind too, are we?" And Jesus says, "If you were blind, you wouldn't have sin. But now that you say we see, your sin remains." And then he continues, "Truly I tell you, anyone who doesn't enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens it for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought all of his own outside, he goes ahead of them. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. They never follow a stranger. Instead, they run away because they don't know the voice of the stranger. Jesus gave this as a figure of speech, but they did not understand. And so he says, truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, and the sheep doesn't listen to them. I am the gate. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. A thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come so they may have life and have it to the full. Most of the time when we read this passage, we attribute this particular thief to a particular supernatural being that we call Satan. You've heard that before, some of you? That the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy? We anchor that on to Satan. Jesus doesn't do that here. Jesus actually anchors the thief who comes to kill, steal, and destroy to religious tradition. Do you catch that? The whole context of the passage. There's a man who he healed. The religious leaders of the day demanded more, despised Jesus because he did good on the Sabbath day, the day that God calls very good, but they were so reserve it and hold on to it, do nothing on the Sabbath, even good for your neighbor. They question the man, they question his parents, they throw the man out. Jesus reenacts or reconnects with that man, affirms that man's faith, and then Jesus begins to explain. And he uses this beautiful illustration of the sheepfold to help us understand. Now, the farm that I grew up on, we had pens that we kept animals in. So that may be kind of the same thing. We had free-range chickens. We cooped them up in the evening time, keep the foxes and the coyotes and such out. The sheepfold would be a rock wall that was almost a full rectangle, save for one opening. And instead of having a gate, the gatekeeper would put his own body in that gap, so that any outside thing that would try to get to the sheep would have to go through him. The sheep would be protected by the gatekeeper of the sheepfold. Jesus says he's the gate for the sheep. All who enter into me can come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And in the context of the passage, Jesus is talking directly to the religious leaders of his day. We come into a space where we talk about faith, and we talk about life in Christ, and we talk about what does it mean to experience life to the full. And a lot of times what keeps us from experiencing the abundant life isn't rebellion. Rebellion is what we were before we said yes to Jesus. Romans says it so clearly, while we were still God's enemies, Christ died for us. Oftentimes what keeps us from experiencing the life that Jesus invites us to is buried under baggage. The things that we bring to say yes to Jesus are often the very things that keep us from experiencing the fullness of Jesus. And that becomes a problem. So how do we live into that? Right? Like if following Jesus feels heavier than the world you left behind to follow him, something's gone sideways. Jesus says, I've come to set you free. I've come to give you life. I've come to restore and renew. And he lays all this out. And if following Jesus feels heavier than the world you left behind, something's gone sideways. Sometimes that something that's gone sideways is just us. I don't need a religious tradition to turn me sideways. You know what I'm saying? Like I carry enough within myself that I don't need anybody else's guilt, shame, or burden to keep me from experiencing faith, to keep me from experiencing life. But us religious types do a good job of adding on to it, don't we?